Imagine this. A racist officer pulls over a black man at night, hurling insults and threats. But what happens next? Let's just say, karma doesn't wait. It's a cold, quiet night, and a black man is driving home after a long day. Out of nowhere, flashing lights appear in his rearview mirror. His heart sinks, not because he's done anything wrong, but because he knows what's coming. The officer approaches, flashlight blinding him, voice dripping with disdain. "Step out of the car," he barks, already assuming the worst. The man complies, but the insults start flying before he can even speak. "You people always think you can get away with anything," the officer sneers, his words sharp and hateful. The man stays calm, but inside, he's boiling. He's heard this before, the assumptions, the disrespect, the blatant racism. But this time, it's different. This time, the officer has no idea who he's messing with. The man knows something the officer doesn't, something that's about to change everything. But for now, he's just another black man being targeted for no reason other than the color of his skin. The officer's hate is palpable, his words cutting deeper with every sentence. "You think you're tough? You think you're above the law?" He spits, his voice full of venom. The man doesn't respond, but his silence only fuels the officer's rage. What would you do in this situation? Would you stay calm, or would you fight back? Let me know in the comments. The officer's flashlight beams directly into the man's eyes, but he doesn't flinch. He's been here before, not in this exact situation, but in moments where his skin color made him a target. The officer's voice is loud, aggressive, and filled with contempt. "License and registration." Now. The man reaches slowly for his wallet, his movements deliberate, knowing any sudden action could escalate things. But the officer is impatient. "Hurry up. You think I've got all night?" he snaps, his tone dripping with hostility. The man hands over his ID, his face calm, but his mind racing. He knows what's coming next, the insults, the assumptions, the humiliation. And sure enough, the officer doesn't hold back. "Figures," he mutters, glancing at the ID. "You people are always up to no good. What's your excuse tonight? Drugs? Stolen car? Or just out here causing trouble like usual?" The man doesn't respond, but his silence only angers the officer more. "Cat got your tongue? Or are you just guilty?" He sneers, stepping closer, his hand resting on his holster. The tension is thick, the air charged with hate and fear. But the man knows something the officer doesn't. He's not just a random civilian, he's the head of internal affairs, the department that investigates police misconduct. He's seen this behavior before, but never directed at him. And now, he's in a position to do something about it. The officer, oblivious, continues his tirade. "You think you're tough, huh? You think you can just ignore me?" He growls, his face inches from the man's. But the man remains calm, his eyes steady, his voice quiet, but firm. "You might want to check my ID again," he says, his tone cutting through the officer's rage. The officer hesitates, confusion flickering across his face. He glances down at the ID, and that's when he sees it, the badge, the title, the name. His face pales, his bravado crumbling in an instant. The man watches as the officer's confidence shatters, replaced by a look of pure dread. But the question is, what would you do if you were in the man's shoes? Would you stay calm, or would you lose your cool? Let me know in the comments. The officer's hand trembles as he stares at the ID, his face draining of color. The badge glints under the harsh glow of his flashlight, and the title beneath the man's name hits him like a punch to the gut, head of internal affairs. The officer's mouth opens, but no words come out. His earlier bravado is gone, replaced by a cold, sinking realization. The man he's been hurling insults at, the man he assumed was just another problem, is the one person who can destroy his career with a single phone call. The officer stumbles back, his voice shaky. I. I didn't know, he stammers, his tone a far cry from the venom he spat moments ago. But the man doesn't respond immediately. He just stands there, calm and composed, his eyes locked on the officer. The silence is deafening, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. The officer's mind races. What happens now? Will he lose his job? His reputation? Everything? He tries to backtrack, his words tumbling out in a panicked rush. Look, I didn't mean any of that. It was just a misunderstanding. Let's just forget this ever happened, okay? But the man doesn't blink. A misunderstanding? He repeats, his voice steady but laced with quiet authority. You insulted me, threatened me, and assumed I was guilty because of my skin color. That's not a misunderstanding. That's racism. The officer's face twists in desperation, but there's no escaping this. The man pulls out his phone, and the officer's heart sinks further. What are you doing? He asks, his voice barely above a whisper. The man doesn't answer. He simply dials a number and holds the phone to his ear. The officer's career, his pride, his entire life, hangs in the balance. But here's the question for you. Do you think the officer deserves a second chance, or should he face the full consequences of his actions? Let me know in the comments. This story isn't just about revenge, it's about accountability. It's a reminder that prejudice has consequences, and sometimes karma comes faster than you think. If this story hit home, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. Please note this story is a work of fiction only for education and entertainment purposes.